All right, we are getting started with our first quarterly meeting. And as a reminder, please do sign in, and the link to everything is in the chat. So, what I usually like to do at our first quarterly meeting is to just talk about some resources that are available to everybody. There's some state and federal resources, there's some calendars, there's some continuous improvement resources. Excuse me. Um, and so we'll go ahead and take a look at some of those. And then I have a whole lot of hot topics to talk about. If you're new to the quarterly meetings, my name is Dave Hunt. I am the Continuous Improvement and State and Federal Programs consultant for the Muskegon ISD. And I'm also on the board of the Michigan Association of State and Federal Program Supervisors, the MASFPS. So you'll hear me talk about MASFPS today. I'm also the professional learning chair for MASFPS. So if you've ever been to any of our conferences, I'm on that committee that organizes all those conferences. Um, so let's go ahead and get started. I want to start off with just these resources we talked about at the top: due dates and calendars. We have continuous improvement month by month checklist. So this, you may have been familiar with a previous version of this. And this is a new and revised version. So we kind of link out to a couple things. It has been fully reworked as of the last couple of months. So if this is something that you have used or referenced before, it has been combed through. Every link in it has been updated. It is a little bit easier to navigate now. Be sure to reference this. I think that this is a really great thing. I always link it in my monthly newsletters. So for every month, you can kind of go in there as you're getting ready to organize whatever you're doing for either your building team or your district team. It's just a good reference to come in and see what are some suggestions about some things that you should be working on. There's always links to lots of resources in there. So this has been newly revised, combed over, all links checked, some navigation improvements, things like that. So that's one of our items. Just wanted to share that one. State and federal programs compliance calendar. This one kind of gives you a calendar of things to work on for each of the months. And this one, well, the previous one we talked about was specific to continuous improvement. This one is specific to state and federal programs. So it will give you some things to work on each of the months, talks about what programs you're addressing, who might be responsible for that. And as an added bonus, it also will link out to written processes for how to accomplish all of those things. If you've ever been through an on-site review, you know that the written processes are one of the main things that they're looking at or looking for on-site reviews. So the State and Federal Program Compliance Calendar will not only give you some hints about what you should be working on at what time of the year, but also will link out to the written processes for how to do that. Um, we have been going through here on the west side of the state. Shelley Patton, our regional consultant, is leading an on-site review prep. And so really, as we're going through this, I really encourage people, whether you're in an on-site review or not, to pay real close attention to this calendar and really understand what those written processes are. So really the way that you use this calendar is you add it to your drive or you download it and you make it your own. So these link all out to the templates. So this would link out, for example, to the template for how Title I and homeless interacts. But you would want to obviously download that, put your district name on it, and put what your actual procedures are. So this is just a suggestion for what those procedures are, and then you can go in and make any adjustments to it. So yeah, the way that this is used is you download it or add it to your drive and then customize it for you and what you do in your district. And then the last due dates and calendars. So there is an Office of Educational Support's application schedule. And so this really describes the perfect world that we do not live in. So this talks about, oh, this is the time of the year you should be thinking about this because that's when our initial allocations are going to be released. And This is the time of year you should do this because our consolidated application is open and that sort of thing. And well, none of those things are happening right now because of our federal government shutdown and the issues that were happening before that. So if you this does not reflect the realities that we're in right now. So it will say, you should have your consolidated app done by June 30th so you can get a July 1 obligation date. And it's like, yes, that's the way that the world is supposed to work, but that's not the world that we live in right this moment. But I do think that this is still helpful and instructive in that it talks about this whole idea of are we in a evaluation phase? Are we in a planning phase? And a lot of times these things are overlapping. We're evaluating our previous programs as we're getting ready and planning for the next school year and things like that. So this really helps to kind of lay out how that works. So just as an example here, under the amendment phase here, it says that October is when we should be starting getting ready for the amendment. Well, we haven't even finished our initial consolidated applications yet. So like I said, this is kind of this is the world that we aspire to, but sometimes aren't able to actually achieve. Another couple of good pieces about this is it does have timelines and activities around some of the specific grants. So for example, the homeless grant, which is separate from our consolidated application, 31A, which is not in the consolidated application, has the annual program fiscal report instead. And then section 41. There's other timelines and calendars in here. So I think this is a very helpful thing to have, even if it's saying what we should be doing or what we hope to be doing versus what our current reality is. Still think it's an important thing to have. I've walked into people's offices and I've seen this printed out and like pinned on people's boards and things like that. So it's a good thing to have around for reference. So that is it for those calendars. Just want to talk about some support resources. Um, this job is typically we're the only people in our districts that work on this job. And so it's forming a network is super important. Getting connected to all the different resources that are out there, I think are just vitally important because there's no way that any one person can keep track of every single thing that's going on. And we really need our network. And so by participating today in our quarterly meetings, you are participating in a network here. Some other ways that we can do that. I do have a monthly communication that gets sent out each month. So hopefully you're all getting that. I'm likely you were because that's where the link to this meeting is. So, the link to that is here. And then I also have the link to subscribe for that is here. Wanted to point out that we have our written processes collaborative. So this is where all of the written processes currently reside. We have a project going right now at MAS FPS where we are going through and updating all of these. And we are going to be moving them onto the MAS FPS website. That it will still be free to use. You don't need to be a member or log in to get to it or anything like that. And the functionality will be the same, but we are going to be moving all these documents over to MAS FPS so that they're owned by the organization instead of being owned by me. So that will hopefully help with the longevity of that. We're also going through and looking for some wording changes, like there's still some things in there that says assist or those sorts of things. So we're going to be updating those. All of the content is still correct and valid and still connects to the current on-site review processes. So really, we're just looking at some wording changes and efficiencies in that. So in the meantime, it's all here and all still being able to be used. We're hoping that by the end of the school year, it will be migrated over to MAS FPS. So that's what's going on with that. If you are in an on-site review or have been through an on-site review, you know about it or should know about that. I do have a couple of guidance pieces for equitable services for private schools. We're going to talk a little bit more about private schools and what's going on that's important to know right now about private schools. But I do have a quick start guide in here about private schools that kind of talks through, like there's a little flow chart at the top, and then there's a little some guidance or help for each one of those little steps down below. So first thing you do is you have to find all your private schools. This goes through how to do that. Then it says we have to really limit down to the private schools that we need to work with. This tells you how to do that. So that process doesn't really need to start until February. So we're not going to go over that in detail now. We will definitely go over that in more detail at our January meeting. But just wanted to let everybody know that this is here. So, but when it comes to planning for next year, there's not really much for us to do with that until February. We'll talk about that at our January meeting. There's some other stuff to talk about for private schools that's important, but we'll cover that in our hot topics. I also have this was through MAS FPS, and there is a very complete guide to everything that you ever wanted to know about private schools but didn't know you were even supposed to know. So 31 pages, and it has lots and lots and lots of detail to it. So if you ever have any questions, this is a great spot to go, and you can search the document to see if this has the answers to the questions that you have. So very complete guide. It is always kept up to date. It's something that is reviewed on an annual basis. So very, very helpful piece here for the private school stuff because we know that can be pretty complicated. I do have just a quick primer about 31A in here as well. This is mostly for folks that are new and just are trying to understand what 31A is for, what are some of the allowable uses. So there's a lot of information out there about 31A, and I've tried to distill some of the more important pieces down to just one page here. So we have a whole conversation about 31A later, so we'll talk more about 31A here in a bit. One area that I get a lot of questions about and wanted to put the link in here is about time and effort. And if we are funding people out of state and federal funds, there are requirements for them to either track their time, document what they're doing, or certify that they're only working on the things they're supposed to be working with. And so this guidance document will give you all the information about that, including scenarios, links to help documents, and example documents. So it also just explains what time and effort is, and those sorts of things. There's also a flow chart that goes with this. So once you figure out all the staff that are funded from state and federal programs, you can just plug them into this flow chart, and it will end up telling you what kind of certification that you're going to need. And then if you click that, it will give you examples and sample documents and things like that. So lots of stuff about time and effort there. I just did a presentation about time and effort at the MAS FPS conference earlier in October. So there's a lot to talk about with time and effort. Mostly at this point, I just want to let you know that it's there. If there are more questions about time and effort, we can bring those up in the roundtable at the end. Last thing under support resources, myself and some colleagues ran 4 years of PD around MyKIP when MyKIP was first getting released. And there's a lot of really, really great stuff in there. So if you are in charge of continuous improvement for your district, if you run your district teams or your school teams, there's tons and tons of resources in these 4 years. I'm not going to open those up, but there were lots of really great things there. There's video of all of the sessions. All the presentations are there. All the resources that we talked about are there. So if you're in charge of continuous improvement for your district, there's lots and lots of resources there for you. Okay, I just want to talk a little bit about MAS FPS. So MAS FPS is the statewide professional organization for people in our positions. I highly, highly recommend that you join. It's only $85 to be a part of MAS FPS. And by being a member of MAS FPS, you also are automatically a member of the national organization, NAFIPA. And they send out monthly updates about what's going on in the federal government that are very helpful. Being part of MAS FPS, we usually have 2 or 3 members-only sessions that you're able to come to that are free. NAFIPA has monthly members-only sessions that are free, and it's a great organization to be a part of. You'll get access to lots of professional development that is only available through MAS FPS. And like I said, this is the only professional organization that is here to support people in our position. So I put in a link here to the different sorts of PD that are offered each year. You'll see that a lot of these PDs have already started, but there's still a lot to go. And for example, if you did join the Directors Workshop series, so let's say that you're in your first few years of being a state and federal programs director, this is the PD for you, this Director Workshop series. There's already been a few sessions for that, but all the resources are there and all the video links and things like that are there. So if you register now, you could still make it to all the rest of the professional learning for this year, and you would still have access to all of the materials and video from what you missed from the first few. So this is it's a great organization, and I was a part of the organization for many years before I joined the board. So I'm not saying that just because I'm on the board. It's like I said, it's the only PD that is available for people that are in positions like this. So I highly recommend becoming a member. We already had our fall Professional Learning Institute. That's our face-to-face conference. But the Spring Learning Institute is coming up in April. Another 2-day session. We'll talk about that at future quarterly meetings as that gets closer. So that is it for the resources. I wanted to pause there just to see if there are any questions about any of those specific resources, or if anyone has any additional resources that they rely on quite a bit that maybe are not listed there. I can already think of two. I think I need to get a couple added here. But let's see if there's any questions about those. So for some reason, I forgot to put two things on there. One is the MDE grants repository. So this formerly was run by a group of folks, myself, James Hissong, who I know is here, some other folks from around the state. We formerly ran this, and we were able to turn this over to MDE. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but you can come in here, and if somebody's saying what's the status of such and such a grant? Well, let's just do 31AA. Let's see if they've updated this with the new information. Has not yet been updated, but you could at least come in and see if somebody's talking about 31AA and you're like, what is it? It would tell you what the purpose of the grant is and things like that. Typically they would have application open and close dates. We'll talk about 31AA a little bit more here in a bit. Probably the most helpful piece on this, though, is because sometimes the information is incomplete. But if you scroll over, it will always have who the lead contact is. And so they're usually pretty responsive if you email. So if you have a specific grant, you're not sure what's going on or when it's going to open or close or what's going on with it, it'll probably be in here, and you can find out who the contact is and email them directly. So that is one of the resources that I should have had in here. And the other is James's grants newsletter. James, could you drop a link to your most recent newsletter in the chat, and I'll get it added to the resources? All right, he's getting that in there. And this is the grants repository. Okay, so those are a couple additional resources for you. All right, I'll link James' most recent newsletter here once he gets that in the chat. All right, so it didn't sound like there were any other questions about that. So I want to get into our hot topics, and there is kind of a lot to talk about. So I wanted to start by sharing a presentation that was given by Kevin Walters. So many of you will know Kevin. He is the manager of all of the state grants for MDE. And so I reached out to him before this to see if he had any materials that he could share. And he just did a presentation in the UP. So I highly recommend, we are not going to go over this whole presentation together, but I highly, highly recommend that you go through and take a very close look at this whole presentation. There is really great information about what's going on at the federal level. And what we knew back in August, what we know today, and this presentation was given 5 days ago. So It's very recent. And then what kind of impact is going on. So um, every slide in here is like gold. There's lots of really great information. Like I said, I don't want to go over this whole thing because we could spend the whole meeting just going through this presentation. But I just wanted to let you know what's going on, like lots of information about the federal government. And then once all the federal stuff is done, it gets into all of the state school aid and what's going on in for the state. So it talks about how many new grants there are and these different types, and so there's just lots of great information in here. So we're going to talk about some of this in a little bit more detail once we get down to the state area. But like I said, I really recommend taking a really close look at this. This is he said, you're welcome to have it. You're welcome to share it. So if you want to take this and comb through it at an administrative meeting or any other of your networks are welcome to use this as well. So lots and lots of great stuff in there. We'll kind of hit some of the high points as we get into some of the other information, both at the federal and the state level. So what I tried to do was kind of distill that down to what's actionable for us. And so that's going to be kind of what comes up through a lot of the rest of our meeting today. Okay, under federal stuff. So we're going to talk about federal, then we're going to get into the state. So starting with the federal, at our MAS FPS Fall Conference, we got a really, really great presentation from the Brewman Group. So we always have the Brewman Group there. So they are lawyers from Washington, D.C. that specifically exist to help with education policy. So great presentation from them. The whole presentation is here. Again, we're not going to go through it, but there is lots and lots of detail here and really gets into a lot of the different pieces on here. They got into some of the flexibility that the federal government is trying to work on right now with the block grants and things like that. So lots of interesting stuff in here. Highly recommend taking a look at this one as well. This one is a little bit more dense than the one that we just looked at from Kevin, but it's if you are kind of a policy geek or like to understand the inner machinations of the federal government, this is really going to be up your alley. So lots of good stuff in this one. Wanted to put that out there and make it available for everybody. So let's get into some of the things that are going on right around now. So for the consolidated application, as we know, that due date is going to be November 7th. And I linked in here the MDE help document. There's also an unofficial notes and tips from some of the MDE consultants. But the main thing is to get those done. As we know, if we get that completed before the due date, then we're still going to get that July 1st obligation date for our federal funds, which means you'll be able to, utilize that to pay for summer PD or the staff that have been working in the schools since the start of the school year, that sort of thing. So we'll be able to spend all the way back to July 1 as long as you make that due date. What they usually say is if you don't make the due date, then your obligation date becomes whenever you get approved. So let's say that you don't get it done until November 15th and get it submitted. Well, if they approve it, then you would only be able to use expenditures after November 15th. So be sure that you get that done on the right timeline. All the consultants, no matter where you are in the state, they want you to get that done. They want to be helpful for that. So if you're having issues with it, if you're having technical issues, if you don't know how to do things, make sure you reach out to your regional consultants. I checked with MDE yesterday, and at the time, I mean, we are still in a federal government shutdown, and so we just don't know what the timelines are for amendment due to the shutdown. The FER, so the final expenditure report, all of that is still on our normal timelines. So the federal expenditure cycle still ended on September 30th. We still need to do our final expenditure reports and get those submitted. But we're not going to find anything out about an amendment until we're able to know what our final allocations were from the federal government. And there's no timeline about when that might be. Typically, we get those around this time of year. We usually get those around the end of December, early November. And this would be the time in the next 3 or 4 weeks when we would start actually working on our amendments. But instead, we're just getting our initial applications done. Um, so that's kind of what's going on with the consolidated app. Just the bottom line, make sure you get them submitted. If you're having trouble with those in any way, make sure that you're reaching out and getting help with that. See that James did put in his recent newsletter here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll link up the most recent one here. So this is just kind of jumping back to our support and resources. If you already received this from James, you know that is a wealth of information. So this goes into a lot more detail than what I go into in my newsletters. I keep mine a little bit higher level. And this really drills down into the grants. So I very, very highly recommend that you subscribe for James's newsletter as well. So I just got that linked up so you can get subscribed to that. Thank you, James. The subscription button for this is down at the bottom. So just scroll down the bottom and hit subscribe. Okay, back to the federal stuff. On-site reviews, if you are getting an on-site review this year, you should have already been notified. We're not going to go into a lot of detail on on-site reviews. If you're on the west side of the state, we're going through getting some training on that. There's lots of resources out there. If you have more questions about on-site reviews, or if you're in an on-site review and you're worried about it, just let's talk about it when we get to the hot topics, and we can see if we can share a couple additional resources for you. Okay, I want to talk about comparability a little bit. So comparability is a requirement in districts that have overlapping grade levels of their Title I buildings. And it's a fiscal test. So it's just really there to make sure that we're distributing our resources correctly. So I reached out to MDE and I was like, I haven't heard anything about comparability. And they're like, well, because of all the stuff that's going on with the federal government, we aren't going to monitor it this year. And I said, okay. And they said, but everybody still has to make sure that they're comparable. And I said, okay, so how can they do that? And so there isn't any official guidance out about that yet. But we're not going, if you've had to do comparability in the past, you are not going to need to log into Nexus. You're not going to need to enter all your numbers in the Nexus. But we are supposed to, if you've had to do comparability in the past, we're supposed to maintain internal documentation that we did it. Now, there has been no official communication from MDE on this, but I wanted to put this out there. I think that something is going to be forthcoming, and I didn't want anybody to kind of get caught unawares for that. So I wanted to show you, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this because I know not everybody has to do comparability, but if you do, I recommend that you look starting on page 19 of this document, that will give you examples about how you can maintain internal records of comparability. So they have 6 examples of ways that you could maintain internal records of comparability. So I am not a comparability expert. When I worked at the LEA level, when I was a state and federal program director, I did not have to do my own comparability. And when people come to me and have questions about comparability, I'm usually like, let's talk to Andrea Rogers. She's kind of the state comparability guru. And so she's who I've been working with to try to get information out about this right now. So again, there hasn't been official word from MD on this, but I'm guessing that it's going to be forthcoming. But I can say with certainty that they're not going to be monitoring it this year, so there's not going to be a comparability in Nexus. But the word is that we're supposed to still make sure that we're comparable and maintain some sort of internal documentation of that. So that might become important for single point audits or fiscal desk audits, things like that. So just keep it in mind. There is a whole website about comparability. They have a presentation about like what is comparability and things like that. So if you're not really sure what I'm talking about, or if you're new in the position and you're like, I've heard about this, I know I have to do it, but I don't really know what it's for, this is what it's all about. Okay, I want to talk about private school requirements for right now. So, as we talked about earlier, right now we aren't going out and trying to find our private schools. We should have already done that last year. So really, there's two things that should be happening. One is that as we're doing our consolidated applications, we are also supposed to be working with our private schools. Um, and you've likely met with them earlier in the year to do your consultations. But this is the time like the real numbers are kind of coming out because our consolidated applications are open. You might be deciding to transfer funds from Title II, which we weren't able to do previously. So at every step of the way, you need to be letting them know what's going on, consulting with them, making sure that they understand what the changes are, making sure that it aligns with what you agreed to in your consultations. So make sure as you're doing your consolidated application that you are in contact with your private schools. You don't need to do a full whole nother consultation if you already have documentation of that, but it's always good to just when you consult with them before, you might not have known what the real numbers were, all those sorts of things. So if anything's changing that's going to impact them, you definitely need to consult with them. So that's one thing that should be happening this time of year. The other thing that happens at this time of year is a responsibility of the private schools. But I have found that it is a really great thing to try to help them with this and make sure that they get it done because it will make your life easier in the future if you're not trying to scramble to help them with it later. So that is they have some reporting requirements that they need to do to the state. So they have two things they have to do. One is called the non-public school membership report. And that was previously in Nexus, but I think it's in GEMS now. Now in GEMS, question mark? I think that got moved to GEMS. So the non-public school membership report is something that they do. And that is typically due by October 1st, 31st, but it's now due November 15th. It is open now. So private schools need to go in, they need to have a MyLogin account. That MyLogin account has to be associated with GEMS. They need to go in and fill out a report. There's also another thing through CEPI that they need to do called the non-public school personnel report. And there's a link to that on the CEPI webpage. Again, they need to have a MyLogin account to be able to get into that. So if, as we know, there's a lot of turnover in private schools, just like there are in public schools. And so they might not have updated their EEM. They might not have gotten the messages from Kevin Walters about to do this. They might not know how to make a login account. They might not, they might need some help. And so it's in my experience, it's always better to try to help them with the stuff on the front end than it is to try to fix it later. So I recommend you can literally just copy this and send it to the private schools that you work with and ask them about it. Say, hey, are you all set? Do you have any questions about this? Have you already completed the reporting? Because if they don't do this reporting, we're not allowed to consult with them. So they need to complete the reporting. Caveat on this, if you are in the consortium that I run for Muskegon and Ottawa counties, I do all this communication for you, so you do not need to reach out to any of your private schools. So if you're in the consortium that I run for Muskegon and Ottawa counties, then I will take care of this for you. When is the personnel report? It's due December 1st. So the membership report is due November 15th, and the non-public school personnel report is due the 1st. They're both really easy. They take like 5 minutes to complete. So they're very easy to complete. Enough said about that. Okay, before I move on to the state stuff, wanted to see if there's anything that anybody has any questions about the federal stuff, any of the things that we covered here, anything that we didn't cover, or if you have your pulse on additional resources that I did not share that would be good for the whole group to have. Could I get maybe just two people to just share, like maybe unmute and share, and just to say this is one takeaway that I had from here. This is what I'm going to take back to my district and maybe who I'm going to communicate that with. Maybe if a couple people could unmute and share that, and maybe if you're too shy to unmute, throw that in the chat.
Dave, I'll go.
Thanks,
So
Mitch.
I'm taking away the PNP stuff they got to do to make sure EEM is updated. I'm going to send a text to our contacts right now just to make sure that they're done and remind them I need their finalized Title II plans ASAP. So thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Mitch.
I'll
Joni
go.
stated that she's going to be sharing Kevin's PowerPoint with her business office.
I'm going to, there's just so many great resources here. It's kind of where do you start first? But I'm going to spend some time going through the calendar. You shared a couple of different resources that are things that need to be done at certain times during the school year that I think are going to be really helpful. And then also sharing this PNP, um, the PNP requirements with our private schools.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie. All right. Just hopefully getting some thinking going for everybody about what are some important things for people. Who is it that they're sharing with? Some other folks are sharing with some new administrators. Other folks sharing with their business official. Okay, so Jamie had a question about the consolidated performance report. So the consolidated performance report has two things in it. Thanks for bringing that up. I didn't have that in here. I have to add that to my notes to have in my October meeting next year. So the consolidated performance report reports on two things. One is the students that your district served in private schools. So if you serve any private schools, then you will need to complete the consolidated performance report. And then the other item that's in the CPR is if you serve delinquent institutions. So if you did not have to consult with any private schools, like you don't have any in your boundaries and nobody indicated they wanted to consult with you, and you also don't serve a delinquent institution, then you don't have to do the consolidated performance report. So there's only a few places in the state that have to do the delinquent portion of it. So most of us, if we're doing the consolidated performance report, it's on the Title I side, Title I equitable services for private schools. And the only thing that you have to do is in that it's a very easy report to complete is you just have to say the number of students that were served and the grade levels at which they were served. I don't think that it even breaks it out by the different private schools. Then it'll say like kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, all the way to 12th grade, and then you just put in the number served at each of those grade levels. So it's pretty straightforward. Where is the consolidated performance report? I let's see. Help me out here. This is a Nexus thing? Yes. Okay. I didn't have to fill it out myself this year, so it's in Nexus, and so it should be listed as an opportunity for you, like under my opportunities. If it's not, you can go to the search area and look for it there. For those of you that had to do the performance report this year, anything that I missed on that you might like to add? Okay. All right, so Mitch and Tara said that I pretty much covered it all. So Jamie, yep, log in there, look under my opportunities. If you can't find it there, use the search function and see if you can find it there. I'm not sure on the if it's one of those things that the level 5 authorized official might need to enable for you. Those details sometimes get past me. So if you can't find it in there, you might want to check with whoever your highest level authorized official is. All right, I did not see. Oh, Joni asks clarification. If private school is taking only Title II and IV, do we need to complete the worksheet? Um, Joni, just clarification. Was that for the consolidated performance report?
No, just the Khan app.
Oh, if the private school is taking only Title II and IV, do we need to? Oh, the equitable services worksheet.
Yes.
Um, Not having it in front of me, I would think yes, because that's still gonna, because you have to go in and you have to put in the total enrollment and you have to put in all those enrollment numbers, and it uses those enrollment numbers and whatever values you put in to like to come up with the dollar amounts that you're supposed to share out to them. Am I think I'm so I'm pretty sure you're still gonna need to do that.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else have any other info on that? Does anybody else have any districts that are not taking Title I, they're only taking 2 and 4? Hopefully I steered you in the right direction. There definitely wouldn't be any harm in filling it out. How's that?
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. I think don't think I saw any other questions. Okay. So let's go ahead and move on to state stuff. So lots and lots of information around the state aid that was recently signed by the governor. So as you know, we were about to enter into a shutdown. The shutdown was averted. They entered into a 1-week continuing resolution to just hammer out some last few details. They actually hammered out those details in the week that they promised that they would, and it went to the governor. And after the legal review, the governor signed it. So this state aid bill is in the can for us. So I want to talk a little bit here. A lot of people are like, hey, I heard about this grant. When's the application going to open for that? And so it takes some time for them to, if there's any new grants, it takes some time for those to get enacted because the legislature says, yes, we want to appropriate dollars to this. Then it goes to the grants office at MDE because they have to figure out, is this a formula grant? Is it a competitive grant? Is it a designated grant? They have to assign it to a grant manager. The grant manager, if it's a formula grant, has to figure out what the formula is and make an application for it. So it just takes a little while. So if you're seeing some things in there that are new or things like that, then even for some of the grants that we get every year, it's still they still have to get things rolling for them and things like that. So sometimes like because it took longer to get things enacted this time, some of those things are going to take a little bit longer to get put into place. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're like, why isn't the application open for this? What's the application window? When's it going to happen? So we don't know those things yet. And so we'll talk about where to pay attention to be able to figure that out. So I have a couple of resources I want to share. One is this school aid one pager. So another big thanks from James. I got this one from James, who got this from somebody else. So I think this one is really, really nice. It goes through and gives a lot of the sections. There's some that are not listed here, but I was able to kind of track down a little bit more information. 35A5 isn't on here, and that's because that got eliminated. So the additional instructional time grant is no longer in the budget. They also don't have our 104H, the assessment reimbursement on here. We'll talk about that one here in a second. We are still getting that, by the way. But there's lots of stuff on here. And I just thought it's really nice as a quick glance. Did some of the grants that might be important to us, did they go up? Did they go down? Was there no change? Again, we're not going to go over every item in here. I just wanted to make sure that you had this resource. Then I do have the actual appropriations bill. So this is what we're working from for all of our stuff this year. If you've never looked at these before, there's a lot. But I actually will go in here and I will look for the actual legislation for things. And so like I just hit Control F and I put in 31N. And so then I can pop down here. Here's the actual 31N. And so I can read the actual legislation for this, because a lot of times what you're getting is, some sort of analysis of it or that sort of thing. Sometimes it's nice to just go right to the actual school aid bill and read it. So I use this quite a bit. I use the find feature and look things up. I'll look up due dates. I'll look up all kinds of stuff. So this is I do think it is helpful to have this. I also have the markup in here. So what this one is, it's they took They took last year's school aid bill, and then they went through and this shows what all the changes were to it. So anything that is bold is new, and then anything that's crossed off is what they took out and what they changed it to. So so this is kind of helpful to see, like, well, wasn't last year, it wasn't such and such, and it's like, yes, you can look in here, you can see what it was last year and what they changed it to for this year. So this is really just like this one, except that it has all the changes from last year's in it. So I don't spend a lot of time on the markup one. Typically, I just go to what was signed into law, and then that's where I spend a lot of my time when I'm deeply researching some of these things. I do have fiscal analysis from the Senate is linked in here. And then this one here is the estimated district impact. And so this takes flat enrollment into account. So if your enrollment is down, these numbers are going to be different. If your enrollment is up, these numbers are going to be different. But all things considered equal, you can look here and you can search for your district. Again, you can just hit the Control F to type in your district name, and you can kind of read across to see what happened with our foundation, what happened with these different sections. Did our 31A go up or down? Those sorts of things. So you'll see that section 35A, that additional instructional time, is now it's zeroed out for everybody. So then at the end, it will tell you on the balance, is your district receiving more or less funding this year? And you can see that almost every district is receiving additional funding this year. And in many cases, it's much more funding. So I think that this is a pretty interesting document to take a look at. So let's see here, just closing out so I don't have a bazillion tabs when we get off our meeting. A lot of times I hear from folks, they'll say, especially with the state grants, how do I know what I'm supposed to apply for? How do I know that I'm not missing something? How do I know when I can apply for it, or what the requirements are? And what I will usually say is your number one source to look at is the weekly memo blasts from MDE. So if you're not signed up for those weekly memo blasts, make sure that you get signed up. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, remind me during the roundtable and I can show you how you can sign up for that. Hopefully you're all getting that. They are imperative. They come out, I think, every Thursday. And I always read those from top to bottom, and I click on every link in it, even if I think that it doesn't apply to me. So those are like the source of information. Then our state grants repository that we talked about earlier is another good one that we can reference. We already talked about that one. And then I would say James's grant newsletter is the third thing that I always look at. And then for all of you, my newsletter. So if you are connected to those 4 items, you should feel fairly confident that you're in the know about what's going on with all the state grants. You can always email me and see if I know something else, but if it wasn't in my newsletter or it's not in James's newsletter, I probably don't know anything more about it. So a lot of times what people will say, hey, what am I supposed to do for X, Y, or Z grant? And so what I'll usually do is I'll usually go to the grant repository. I'll scroll over and I'll see who the contact is. And I'll say, oh, you should email Amy about that. And I'll give them the email address. So if I don't know it, I'll usually just look in the grant repository and see who the contact is, and then pass that along. So that's usually how I answer that question. New directors all the time are scared about missing grants and missing deadlines and all that kind of stuff. So if you're connected to those 4 resources, the MDE Weekly News Blast, if you know how to look in the grants repository, if you're getting James's newsletter, if you're getting my newsletter, then you should be in the know enough to be dangerous. Okay. So lots of resources there. Hopefully that all those items will be helpful for you. The EEM, I always want to implore everybody to get in and look in the EEM and make sure that all of your information is updated. Make sure that you have the right grade level configurations, that you have the right buildings. People are opening buildings and closing buildings and those sorts of things. Administrators change, testing coordinators change, English learner coordinators change, superintendents change. So you need to keep the EEM updated. This is what MDE uses to communicate with all of those people. So when they're communicating about important assessment changes or professional learning or any of that sort of stuff, they're looking for the assessment coordinators in the EEM to send that out to. A lot of times when they're sending out grant award notifications, they'll go to the EEM and pull the superintendents and send it to the EEMs, or send it to the superintendents by what's in the EEM. So, and you're going to run into a lot of other troubles if your grade level configurations of your buildings aren't set up correctly. You're going to have accountability issues. So just make sure, go in there, take a look at the EEM. Somebody in your district, a lot of times it's the district's executive administrative assistant. Somebody at the district has access to the EEM and can make all those changes. Just take a look in there, look through all your buildings, look through your district, make sure that everything is all up to date. Okay, let's talk about 31A a little bit. I have gotten quite a few questions about how do we know how we're funded for 31A? What opportunity index band am I in? What do opportunity index bands mean? And so I wanted to just share a couple of things that I don't think are really widely known. So there is, for 31A, the best place to look is on the state aid payment information website. So that's linked in the dashboard here. If you scroll down to the bottom of that, you'll see that there's 25, 26 at-risk estimates. So if we click that, it's going to download a spreadsheet. So I'm going to pop that open. So once you get into the spreadsheet, it's going to have a lot of information here about what's your foundation, what are your accounts, what's your membership, what is your economically disadvantaged percentage, and then you will get what is called an OI score. So that's your opportunity index score. And this tells you what opportunity index band you're in. And that has a lot of implications for what your funding is. So here's your score. Right here, it's going to tell you what band you're in. So this band is 100% dependent on your opportunity index score. Your opportunity index score is 100% based on your economically disadvantaged percentage. So you can see here for this first district, they had 75.92. They will round that for your opportunity index score. So they get a score of 76, and that puts them in band 5, which has implications on how much 31A funding you have. So if the higher your band that you're in, the more 31A funding that you get. So a lot of times people just see the number for 31A and they don't understand some of these other pieces about it. If you're in our position, we really need to understand a little bit more under the hood. So I wanted to share this page. A lot of times I'm talking to folks and they don't understand what this is. Cool thing on here is it has a comparison to last year on it. So you can see what was going on last year, what's going on this year, and a little bit under the hood about why some of those changes might have happened. So also linked here, I put in this doc that explains a little bit about what those index bands are and what they mean for the funding. We're not going to go through exactly this whole thing. It's pretty short, but right here, if you're wondering, like, where am I in the band? Am I like almost over the line to the next band? Am I at risk of falling into a lower band and then losing my funding? So this will tell you what the targets are for all of the bands. So we were looking at that district that was a band 5. So that was because I think they were at 76. So that means they were greater than or equal to 73, but less than 85. That's what put them in band 5 because they were at 76. Their opportunity index score was 76. Okay, so that questions that I get, they're like, if we were able to identify more students for free and reduced lunch, and we increased our percentage by a couple points, would that put us in the next band? It's like, well, let's look at this document and see. So, which brings me to my next point about the importance of identifying for free and reduced lunch. So you've probably heard me harp on this before, so if you did, I'm sorry. But it is even more important now than ever to make sure that we are actually identifying our students that are economically disadvantaged. So we're in the era of community eligibility or free meals for all. And I hope that most districts know that we still need to collect benefits forms and get those submitted because many of our students are not federal direct cert, and so we need to still collect their forms. The form that you need depends on how you're funding your lunch. So if you have a traditional system, then you can use the regular benefits application. If your district is community eligibility, then there's a benefits form for it. So I have the different forms linked there. Your meals director is probably already knows all of this, but just wanted to let you know that I would definitely go back and just have an administrative conversation about how are we doing with identifying students for economically disadvantaged. Are we still pushing this as hard as we did before we were involved in community eligibility? Because it has direct impact on a lot of different things, but the most important one, in my opinion, is 31A. So that's going to put you in the correct band by how many economically disadvantaged students you have. And then it's also the direct funding is directly tied to the amount of students. So in two ways, if you were to identify all the students that were economically disadvantaged, it helps you in two ways. It might increase your opportunity index band, which means more funding, and then it puts that number in as the multiplier, which means more funding. So if it's worth every single one of you going back and having an administrative conversation about, are we identifying as many students for free and reduced lunch as we should be? It's worth a conversation for everybody to have. Last item that I want to talk about with 31A is at the Special Populations Conference, which is happening right now, there's typically a legislative update from the 31A team. 31A gets tweaked every year, so they either expand the sorts of things it can be used for, or they add new ways that you can use the funding. So I'm hoping to get my hands on that presentation later this week, and I will add it to this dashboard, and then it will for sure be in my next monthly communication as well. So that's something that I always pay real close attention to each year. Even if I don't go to the Special Pops Conference, I try to get my hands on that presentation. Was anybody at the Special Populations, or are you at Special Populations right now? And if so, I'm not even sure what day the 31A, was anybody at that presentation? Did they get their
I am
hands on it?
David. I'm here right now. I actually have the presentation if you want me to send it to you.
I do.
Okay,
Yes,
I'm working on
please.
it. Working on it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Well, I'm going to get that presentation linked up here in just a minute. So awesome. Yeah, so we'll get that linked up, and that's something that I always pay real close attention to. We won't look at it today, but I'm going to get it linked up for us today. Okay, if you don't mind, I think I'll get through the whole state section, then we'll stop and stop for questions and any additional resources anybody might have. We should be able to get through the rest of the stuff fairly quickly. So 31AA. So another question, maybe somebody attended this. I was not able to attend the 31AA, 31N webinar that was on Monday. Did anybody attend that? And if you did they share a presentation that you actually were able to get your hands on?
Hi, Dave. This is Stacy at Montague.
Hey there.
Yeah, I attended it. I sat through the 31AA. I took off when they started talking about 31N, but there is a slide deck that I can send you and a recording. And kind of what my takeaways from it are that there's going to be 3 pots of money this year. You're going to have your per pupil, which right now is estimated to be $140, and that's if everybody in the state applied for it. Then you've got 2 competitive grants. You've got safety dogs and SROs. Safety dogs can't be purchased, they have to be contracted. And I'll send you my notes on this, Dave, too, because I'm getting this together for my group.
Perfect.
Safety dogs have to be contracted. SROs, what for the competitive portion has to be a new position. And also for the competitive portion, there's another competitive grant for mental health support staff. Again, has to be a new position, supplemental, not supplanting. Your Nexus is going to be what they're going to use for the competitive grants. GEMS Mars is what they're going to use for the per pupil. There will be reporting due July 2026. If you remember, last year reporting was due in June, which made no sense whatsoever. So the reporting will be July 2026. And also our current practice is that if you have carryover, you have to send an email to the 31AA office every fall. They're going to do away with that practice, and we'll be able to request our carryover in that July 2026 report. We'll also want to make sure that we are tracking all of your different 31A, AA years separately, because it's getting increasingly more restrictive with what you can spend it on. And they did say that this competitive portion of the grant the per pupil part of the grant will continue to be more restrictive than it has in previous years. They did request that you maybe reach out to the grants office to make sure that what you're spending money on is allowable. So I did that yesterday. I sent my job descriptions. I sent information, what we wanted to spend the money on, and make sure I had it in writing that, yes, it was an allowable use. Yeah, I guess those are my big takeaways there.
Thank you, Stacy.
And I'll send you that info.
Awesome. And so I will link in the resources that Stacy shares about that, and that Joni shares about the 31A. So really appreciate that. Yeah, so just like Stacy said, there's 3 pots, right? So you have our regular formula grant, and it sounds like, we know the pupil amount. Again, this is if everyone applies. Likely there's going to be some places that don't apply, so it may be even more than $140 per pupil that we get. And then as far as the competitive grants, these are broken out into those that SROs and safety dogs, and then contract psychs. So it sounds like an important note here that you talked about all these new hires, like they really are trying to get you to supplement what you already have. So they do not want you to just say, oh, wow, well, we can save some general fund dollars and pay for our SRO out of this now, right? Like this is supplemental. So this is in addition to things that you already have. Or, yeah, great, now we can use 31A to pay for our social workers. No, you can use 31A to expand the amount of social workers you have, right? So, that's going to be something to really keep in mind. And it'll be something that you're going to have to like help your administrative team understand. A lot of times, when these grants come in, people start to think, oh, well, let's just change their position title or their job description, and now they're like a new person. And, so like all kinds of games get played when this stuff comes out. The reason they're putting this funding out is to try to increase the amount of people that are there helping, not just shift the funds around. So try to keep that in mind.
So a couple more things. We had created some new positions with this grant back in 2024 when it came out. So I was allowed to continue funding those positions with a per pupil amount. Also, make sure you check with your superintendent before you accept this money. Now, there's a bunch of information on the listservs and such that by accepting this money, you forego your attorney-client privilege. You forego a lot of insurance protection should you have a mass casualty event. You have to basically give carte blanche when it comes to a mass casualty event. And there's questions on how mass casualty is defined. For example, if you have a school bus accident with more than 3 kids involved, is that now a mass casualty event? SETSEG is really balking at this. Troon is really balking at this. So before you accept the funds, make sure you check with your superintendent. They did say once you accept those funds and then you decide you don't want them because of all of these legal implications, it is too late. Once you accept the funds, you are certifying that should there be a mass casualty event, you will have an open investigation.
Well, that sounds ominous.
which is why a lot of districts are not going to take the money, and there's going to be more money per pupil out there, in my opinion.
Stacy, can I ask you to restate? We're in a similar situation where we had created a new position back in 24. Did you say that we're not allowed to use the per pupil on that? I realize on the competitive side, but on the formula grant as well?
I was allowed to, but I reached out to the program office just to verify that.
You are allowed to. Okay, thank you. But the strings still apply to that amount or to that portion as far as immunity, et cetera.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I saw Michelle Gill mentioned that all of the resources are posted on, they're linked on an MDE webpage. Michelle, could you drop that link to that in the chat for us? I'd appreciate that. All right. Wow, some districts are actually being advised by their legal counsel to not accept the funds because of what Stacy was just discussing, is what I'm seeing in the chat. Well, that's interesting. A little scary. Real quickly, I know that we aren't the ones that apply for those 31N funds, but I just wanted to mention that they are still there and still are going to be available to us this year. So mostly just wanted to mention that. Typically that's applied through the ISD is the one that gets those funds and then works with the districts about that. So we already talked about 35A not being funded. I checked in with, so two caveats on this. One is you can still expend any existing 35A funds all the way through September 30th of 2026. Okay, so if you had carryover or you didn't expend all the funds or you wanted to try to do something a little bit differently this year, like you're going to spend half the funds this year and half next year to try to smooth something out with one of the other funds. So this is that additional instructional time grant for those K3 kids. So you can now, you can expend those funds all the way through September 30th of 2026. So just keep that in mind. Kevin said that he is checking to see if there's any unexpended work project funds or if this is something, maybe sometimes things get added back into supplementals, but I'm not holding my breath on this one, that funding is going to come back through. But just know that at this time you can continue to expend those funds this year all the way through September 26. The 104H, so that's our benchmark assessment reimbursements. As of when I was putting this together earlier this week, I have not seen that the web page has been updated or the FAQ, but it looks like the funding is there and that there's not any fundamental changes to it other than the amounts were increased a little bit, just basically probably to keep up with inflation. I am going to be attending the webinar. So there's a webinar tomorrow from 1 to 3. So I'm going to be attending that. And so I'll have, if there's new information to share about that, I will have that in my November newsletter. So this is, let's see, oh, here it is. So I'm going to paste the link to this webpage in here. So here is the webinar and the slide deck that we were just discussing about 31AA. Thanks, Michelle. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this in. So this is on the school safety. Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing that. So yeah, sorry, just to wrap up 104. Basically, we're going to be able to continue to do our assessment reimbursements as long as we're using those approved assessments, K8 funding amount seems to be about the same, maybe a little bit more, just to keep up with price increases. And I'm going to go to the webinar and I'll share that information out. The last item that I had on my agenda is school accountability. So I went to there was an accountability presentation from MDE on September 25th. I attended that. And so I have the link to their presentation in here. New accountability is going to come out in November, and there was not a date on that, but that usually gets announced in the Spotlight, I think is where that's usually announced. So the assessment newsletter that gets sent out, it's usually announced there. I'm not sure that it'll be in the weekly news blast, but it'll be in one of those 2 locations. And we will have a week of preview before it gets released to the public. And that's just a really good time to get in and understand what is there before anybody from the public ends up having questions about it. So what is going to happen this year is every year is a TSI identification year. So that's the targeted support and improvement. Every year is a TSI year. And then this is the year that CSI is getting reestablished. So this is done every 3 years. And then we're in the middle of the 6-year cycle for ATS. So the next ATS identification year is going to be 2028. They did do something this year where if ATS schools had met the criteria to exit, they were given the option to exit ATS status now. And those districts have all already been identified. So if you have some ATS districts or ATS schools in your district or your ISD, and you're like, oh, I wonder if they were exited. They were all notified and they all responded. So there wasn't anybody that they're missed the memo or something. So I checked with MDE about that. So those ones, they either exited or they stayed in, but the next identification year is going to be 2028. So this year we're going to have a TSI identifications, and we'll also have CSI identifications. So so that's what's going on with that. I have a school index playlist. A few years ago, I contracted with MDE to make videos about the school index. And so this playlist has all those videos that I made. I spent an untold amount of time making these videos. And so I would love it if you went and watched some of them, because they do not have viral amounts of views on them after all the amount of time that I spent on it. So if there's any there that perk your interest, it would really help me feel better about myself if we up those numbers a little bit. I'm just kidding. Don't go and waste your time on it if it's not something you don't need to do. But there's a video playlist there that goes really into great detail about all the different parts of the school index and how to use it and how to read it and what it's for and all those sorts of things. There is also some additional resources just about what are those things. So if you end up with a new identification, you're not sure what it is or what your responsibilities are, that information is linked here as well. Right, Will? Yeah. Right now it's not that important, but once those news designations come out, maybe that'll be a good time to look. Oh, Sonia's having a movie night. Now we're talking. Love it. Okay, before we move on to roundtable, wanted to see if there was anything additional about all the state stuff that we want to talk about. So any questions that you still had, any resources that we did not discuss that you think would be good to share with the group before we move on to the roundtable?
This is Stacy again. I know you're sick of listening to me, but I just want to tell the group to be cautious about that district fiscal impact. Be cautious about that if you present that to your admin team, because it's not completely factual. They didn't figure in a decline in student enrollment. So if you had a decline in student enrollment, that's not affected there. Also, there was a pot of money they gave us last year, which is 147A4. They have completely eliminated that funding this year. For Montague, that was $500,000. So if you look at this sheet here, it says that Montague's up 500 grand. We're not. We're down the 500 grand they took away from us. Plus, I've lost 23 kids. So I'm actually receiving less funds than I did last year. And the increase in at-risk, bilingual, that's all wonderful, but that's only if I can find supplemental expenses to spend it on and not supplant it. So again, it's not a true funding picture, and be cautious when you think you're rolling in the money because it may not be accurate.
Very, very well put, Stacy. And they do try to indicate here, does not account for changes in enrollment, but that's a pretty small asterisk. Stacy, can you say again, what was that funding that is not accounted for on here?
So it's 147A4. If you recall last year, the last school year, they did not give us a per pupil increase. Instead, they said, oh, we're going to give you this MIPSR's offset. It was an offset for the amount we paid into the retirement system. So they didn't give us per pupil last year. They gave us this pot of money, which for Montague was $500,000. This year, they have now taken that funding away from all districts.
How is that different from 147A1 that's on that school aid budget one pager?
Yeah,
Sorry for the rookie question, but
So that was another offset. So when they started creating this budget, we knew back in spring, they said, hey, we're going to cut your 147A4. Be ready, districts. That's A4 is a big chunk for districts, but plan on the rest of your 147s. This new budget came out 2 weeks ago. We never saw anywhere that 147A1 could have gone away, and it did. So that was a surprise to districts as well. For Montague, that was $100,000, not as detrimental as the $500,000, but still $100,000 is a position or two that we weren't expecting on those revenues going away. It's all a shell game.
Stacy, did the notes that I took here reflect what you were just sharing?
Yes, and I think if anybody has questions, talk to your business manager and they'll be able to better show you kind of what the actual impact for your district is going to be.
All right. Thanks for sharing that, Stacy. Anything else with state grants? Questions, resources to share? Anything else there?
Morning, David. It's Jamie. My consolidated performance report isn't showing in Nexus. I just see the 2024 report submitted.
Okay.
What did you say we should do? And I am a level 5.
Oh, all right. I was gonna say I was gonna say talk to your level 5. Maybe they need to assign it to you. Anybody else did anybody else have to do anything specific to try to get that so that it would show up in their Nexus?
You have to.
Sonia said something about initiating a related document. Could Angela or Sonia unmute and explain what that means?
Yeah, so if you go into last year's consolidated app, and you open up that application, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a button that says Initiate Related Document. That will give you the option to create and open the consolidated performance report.
Thank you.
Angela gave the thumbs up on that. Okay. Keep working on it, Jamie. We're on for a little bit longer. If you still can't get it figured out, we'll see if we can help you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Roundtable. I had John reached out this morning before the meeting and was asking about the transparency page. I knew the answer to some of these. I was going to see if anybody had additional information. John had asked, what should we have on our district transparency page? So that's that transparency link that pops up. And so some of the things that he was asking about were Title I plans, ESSER requirements, what needs to be there for their MyKIP plan, 23G, things like that. So I'm going to go over what I know for sure, and then we'll see if some other folks can chime in. Your Title I plans should be posted on your transparency link. So it's a requirement that those plans are available to parents, and the easiest way to do that is to put it on your transparency link. So I recommend that not only, well, you have to put your Title I plans in your consolidated application now, but when you do that, you might as well just also update your transparency link and make sure that your most current Title I plans are there for all of your districts. Oh, hey, side note, Jamie got it. Way to go, team.
Thank you.
So yes, Title I plans should be on Transparency Link. I'm hoping that the group could help out with ESSER. If we don't know for sure what should still be there, I can reach out to Kevin Walters. I know that they were wanting us to have, I'm forgetting the name of it changed a couple of times, but there was previously, there were some things that needed to be there. And the last I knew is they wanted us to keep whatever the last version of that was on our transparency links to make sure that that makes it through any kind of auditing that we're having. So I see some folks are putting in the return to learn plan. I thought there was a change from the return to learn plan. I thought that was the earlier one. So here's a full transparency. So this is from Angela. Angela, this is something that's like really comprehensive, right? Like it has lots of stuff on here that's supposed to be on there. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna put this in here just as a resource. Angela, do you know if that talks about the current ESSER requirements at all in there without me having to dig through it right this second? Or could you maybe take a look while we're talking about some of these other items and see if that's in there? We'll come back to ESSER. As far as the specific question John had was around 23G and how you might be able to meet any requirements about saying what your 23G plan is. And the way that you do that is to post your MyKit plan, because we're supposed to have those 23G requirements listed in our MyKit plan. And my recommendation is just to always have your most current MyKit. This is probably will not be found in that transparency resource. It's a recommendation from me just to have your MyKit plan posted, because that will kind of cross off a lot of items that might come by about like, are you communicating with your community about things like, does your board know, and things like that. So if it's on your, I just recommend putting your MyKit plan on your transparency link in general. That'll take care of some other things, and then it'll also take care of this any kinds of requirements that might still be out there around 23G. Okay, Angela indicated that that document that we had doesn't have any specific grant details on it. So that's probably more around fiscal and other things. So let's keep going through these and see if we can figure some more things out. So MyKit plan, I would say should be posted. And this will take care of any 23G requirements. And then during COVID, we had this whole situation with we didn't have state assessments at the time. And so the legislature is like, well, how are the districts going to be accountable to their communities if we can't show the state assessment results? And so this 98B was born. And we had to put, if you were here at that time, you may remember that we had to put up what our benchmark assessment results were, goals that each building had to improve those and things like that. None of that has to be on the webpage anymore. So none of that 98B stuff has to be there. It was 98B 104A. None of that has to be there. So if you still have 98B 104A stuff there, you can take it down. If you're still been posting all of your benchmark assessments and stuff like that, you do not need to be doing that. 98B 104A is done. You do not need to maintain this or keep it posted. Okay, Lori said, I think Kevin said to have it up, their LEA plan, use narrative, continuity of learning plan, and then the public comment documentation and updates to continuity plan. I remember hearing the same thing, Lori. It's because they're still closing that out, and I think they're still doing some sort of auditing, and they're still going to want to see it. So my recommendation is whatever you might have up there for ESSER right now should probably stay. I don't think you need to be doing new things for it and re-upping the plans and things like that. But I'm going to check with Kevin after this, and I will update. I'm going to update this spot here. If I if I hear back from him right away when I email this out with the video and all that kind of stuff, I will also say what I heard back from Kevin. But I will get it posted here, and then I'll also put that whatever he says in the newsletter. So. Okay. John, did it help anything else that we missed that you were wondering about on that one?
No, that was perfect. Thank you.
All right, you got it. Okay, other roundtable items. We have a lot of brain power in the room, a lot of people that know a lot of things about a lot of different things, way more than what I know. What additional questions do you have that the group can help address right now?
I'm wondering if anybody's heard of the 99H robotics grant. I'm not finding it anywhere.
Simeon, you're usually all over that grant. You know anything about that this year?
I have not heard yet. I think my gut tells me everybody's so busy playing catch up on the big ones from the delayed budget that we'll hear more soon about that 99H, but I have not heard anything yet.
Okay. I'll keep holding tight then. And then I am still having trouble initiating that performance report. Am I initiating that out of the Khan app 24 or 25? When I initiate at the bottom of my Khan app, it's not giving me the option to initiate.
I initiated it from the home page at the bottom where your applications that you're working on are listed. There's an initiate related document there
Okay.
on the
And
Nexus homepage. And then at the underneath it'll be a drop down menu and you click on Khan App 25.
it's just not letting me create anything. You're supposed to be creating something.
Well, once you initiate it opens up the report.
Hmm.
And then you
Becky,
can find it
Becky
back
and
on your
Angela, could you
homepage.
maybe could we maybe stick around just for a second, and then Becky could share her screen, and maybe Angela, you could take a look at it?
Oh,
No
that'd be great.
problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, perfect. Okay, so we'll come back to that. So about the 99H grant, I'm seeing in the grants repository that it says 2526, and there's an active link to a 99H webpage. So I don't know, it looks like it has the grant awards, but it says application periods closed. So this looks like it, even though it's linked in there and it says this year. I would recommend, so I'm going to go back to my tried and true here.
Yep.
I would recommend emailing Ashley at this MDE-EdTech address,
Okay.
and just ask your specific question there.
Perfect. I emailed Ashley and she's not available, but the ed tech did not kick me back. So I'm gonna hope that they reply.
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully, if she's not the one, hopefully that goes to whoever's
Yeah.
next.
Yep. Makes sense.
So there was a question about, Tara had a question about 27H. And Amber messaged about 27H. Does anybody have any additional that they can share about 27H? Anybody else have an inside scoop on that one?
I guess, Amber, if you hear anything back from Martin, let me know or let David know and he can share with the group, I guess. I have not contacted him myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Amber, if you want to email me about that, I will put whatever update that you hear. And Becky, same thing. If you hear something about 99H, I'll post it in here. And then Amber, same thing. And then Tara, if you maybe want to drop your email address in the chat, then maybe Amber could email you directly too. Okay. Anything else? We're at that 10:30 mark, so I want to honor that time. So, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap the meeting up. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but I'm going to stay in the meeting. I'm going to help see if we can help get Becky set with the consolidated performance report. Somebody just texted me a private message, so I can address that afterward as well. So, okay, it looks like a couple people are having trouble with the consolidated performance report. So if you are one of those people, stick around. We'll see if we can figure it out. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.